We're going to start this type of study off with this first session here. It's called petty cash. I'm doing a 2-chord progression, which is a pretty common thing to do when you're jamming with people. You know, play 2 chords back and forth, especially 2 major chords, maybe separated by a whole step. But we're going to do it a little differently. It's going to be a little bit more creative than that. We're going to be separating the 2 major chords, but I'm not going to think of them as maybe flat 7 to 1 in a mixed Lydian vibe. We're actually going to be doing 1 to 2. So this is more of a Lydian vibe. The groove or the feel of the track that we're going to play over is taken after a Tom Petty tune called Here Comes My Girl. So key of A and back and forth with this Lydian thing, and you're going to see how that second chord, the B chord, how it brings in this flavor that's totally fresh and new, and there's going to be some very cool playing techniques to take that even further. So let's move to the next step, and then we're going to start some playing and then do some talking. Petty Cash is a 36-bar jam. The format is going to be something that I'm going to stick with throughout all of the jams. What I want to do is play you the progression, but then I'm going to give you variations of how that progression is going to roll out. So the way it's done with this one is I have a 4-bar first presentation, and then I'm going to augment that, or maybe that's not a good word with chords. So I'm going to differentiate between that. You know, I'm going to expand off of the original one. In this case, I'm going to do it 2 more times. So I'm going to give you 3 sets of 4 bars, 12 bars. Then I'm going to give you another set, another set. There's your 36. We're in the key of A. It's a nice groove. Let's see, it's 108 beats per minute, and this is the first of 6 fantastic tracks that Steve Jenkins did, both his stellar bass playing as well as his great drum programming. And he nailed every vibe that I wanted to have for these jams. So petty cash, 36 bars, key of A, 1 to 2 progression, A to B chords, all kinds of fun stuff that I'm going to play for you, and then we're going to break down every little bit. Ready? Here we go. Petty Cash is set up in 4 bars. I'm going along with that groove from the great Tom Petty song, Here Comes My Girl. So I'm playing those 2 major chords. And I start things off with second inversion, A's and B's. And then I have that nice quarter note triplet tag after the B. So basically what I'm doing is giving you some meat and then kind of sweetening it with some A1 sauce in the form of those quarter note triplets. The cool thing here is I give it to you in 3 different ways. So I really tried on this one to give you all of the options for each type of voicing. So the first pair of voicings is the second inversion. Just simply barring right there. And real quick about that, first finger I'm doing for the bar because it really sets up nice for the counter melody that comes after the B's. So for the A over E and B over F sharp, I'm making sure my first finger touches the low A string to help with, you know, to mute it out. I could play it. it's just the sound that's going on here, the tone that I have, and also just the general presentation of everything. It gets a little cluttered. So I tightened it up by just playing the 3-note fretted parts of this chord. Moving forward in this set, this first set of 4 bars, first set of 3 sets of 4 bars, however you want to say that, I have a root position A after that, root position A and B. Now my thumb's coming over doing the muting, so I don't have the option to put a tip of my finger to hold or to mute out that open 5th string. I use my thumb to come over, so it's a lot of thumb. I'm not fretting anything. We will fret with the thumb, but not right now. I play that same melody, except this time, as opposed to the first 4 bars where I was giving it to you in dyads, where the B was common and then that top note melody is the movement. In this case, I'm giving you single notes. And I'm holding down the B the whole time. Same 2 chords, same melody, but just a different way to do it. Then we're going to do that one more time with first inversion A's and C's, still no open A string, except for when you did this. Give you that open A, I thumped it, and then I give you that melody one more time. Let's make sure here. Yep. So as you can see, my chart is to the left. You should have your chart close too, as I'm explaining all of this and as you're playing through it, because there's a lot of information here. So I give you that palm mute after, which let's also not forget that I'm doing this. This one I just changed a little differently, where I played that quarter note on for the A on beat 4, and then slid that up. I just changed the phrasing a little bit because it just felt like it. And for this particular voicing and where I was, it just seemed like I needed to change it up. So I'm giving you the same 2 chords, 3 different voicings, and 3 different ways to play the same counter melody at the end. The take from that, besides, the different ways to do it, is also you don't have to tie yourself or commit yourself to one way of doing something and then maybe try to play it in an alternative spot and not take advantage of the fact that the alternative spot could give you a different way. Do that. Take the pro of moving things around instead of thinking, well, I might want to play it here, but then I got to come up with some way to play something exactly the same way. There's no reason to do that. Each spot offers something unique. Use it. Now moving on to the next set of 4. Now things change. We start to get away from that vibe that really connects itself to the original tune. But I go back to the same place I started, and I do this every time. I'm going back to the second inversion A's, and here it's just what I'm doing there is giving you the A chord and the B chord, second inversion, and I'm adding the 6. The 6 is a great tone to bring in and out for any of these type of chord embellishment things because it's very non-threatening. It doesn't inject any sort of color. It's probably the most passive note in the major scale, but it's a great way to create some melodies like I did here, and these are real simple. If you put the 6 in there as a chord, which I did eventually for both of these, what you create is a relative minor chord. And that totally plays nice with major chords. You can go back and forth seamlessly and never infer any sort of harmony that's outside or getting away from what it is that you're playing here. So, meaning you're not overcomplicating things. Now the next stage from there, I give you those. Then I give you root position, the chords. But I'm going for a completely different vibe here for the counter melodies. So I play the chords. We're going to play that approach a lot. What I did is I played the A major chord, root position, and the voicing is 1, 3, 5. And I just simply took the 5 and lowered it a whole step to a 4, and I want them to ring. I love that sound. One of the reasons is, and probably the most important reason is, inside this chord is a half step, a minor second interval, and I just like the kind of sugar and spice sort of dissonant consonant thing going on there at the same time. I move it up and play the same thing. I just change the phrasing just a little bit. So here it's half note, dotted quarter. Little subtle difference, but it just makes the part a little bit more interesting, a little bit more creative. Now between those two, I'm playing add 4s. That's what they are at that point. A add 4 and B add 4. for both of those chords. Overall, I mentioned this when we first started this, that this progression falls under Lydian. A Lydian is A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, right? Okay, so where did this D come from that I'm doing as an A add 4? It comes from me, because that's what I wanted to be there. Just because the chord progression infers something doesn't mean that you have to stick with it. So you can shift colors at will. Of course, you have to be mindful of it. And basically, your determining factor is, does it sound good or does it not? Okay, so moving forward, we want to get to the third iteration of what's happening in the second set. So we're back to first inversion chords. And that's where it gets, just getting a little bit more interesting here. So we got this. There's that same thing where I got a half step interval. This time it's between the major 7 and the root. And I got that going on for these arpeggiated ideas. Oops. So for the first one, I have the half step in there. For the second one, I didn't do that. So I didn't take the same idea as the root positions with the add 4s to have these two parallel voicings. What I did with this is I brought up A, added a major 7. Then I brought up B, and for this chord, vertically looking at it, I'm adding a flat 7. Overall, that's diatonic to the key, because it's the root. It's A, that added note. I'm not trying to infer dominant there. It's just a passing note, and it's just something that really fits because of the overall tonic. So, and then I come back and play this B, a B6. Remember what I said about 6? It's very open. It's it allows you a lot of leeway, so it just sits really nice. Okay, that's the second set. Let's go to the third and final set where things get a little bit more interesting. We go down deeper into the creative rabbit hole. So, and this one's going to move around a little bit more too. Instead of just staying with one type of voicing and embellishing it, we're going to now start to expand that. So I do this on the next one. So I'm starting off with second inversion A and jumping root position. And I'm going back to the original idea, space. And I give that little thump of the open A, just a rhythmic element there to keep things moving forward. And that precedes, it's like a pickup to this grace note hammer-on of, guess what? A 6. It just allows me to do stuff like that. It's just, you're hearing some melody in there, but it's not changing colors drastically. So I go from there. That's an important move right there. This. Major chord, major triad, no matter what the voicing, but this is like the classic way to do it for guitar players, is get that 4 to 3 to 1. And so on and so on. So many examples of this. And that's how this whole thing comes together. That's the A and B parts of this. So there's space, more space than some of the other parts I've played, but there's some syncopation where I'm giving you some stuff that's on upbeats at different spots. It's a nice groove change. Rolling into the next idea, I'm going to go between root position chords and a first inversion A for A specifically. So I just do. So the first thing I do is give you a palm muted idea. And then just arpeggiate between the two voicings. Then I answer that with the B, same approach. Just kind of give you a muted punch. Well, really what I do is this. There's that cluster again. The cluster is in there between the, thinking in B for a second. The cluster is here. B to D sharp and to C sharp. That's a true cluster. When you put together, if you stack things, you give a harmonic instance that has seconds, whether they're major or minor, in any combination, 2 major seconds, 2 minor seconds, 1 of each. That's a cluster. And that's... The last 4 bars goes back to playing with one voicing. And we're at the first inversion. So this is where it gets a little bit more Hendrix / Curtis Mayfield. We got this. And then... So the first one, like I said, it's kind of got that Hendrixy vibe there, where I'm inside using the sixth, and then grace noting a two. So twos and sixes, or sixes and nines. Again, easy colors to inject, totally diatonic. They're nice options to be able to play. They don't change things. They don't create clusters. I love clusters. I love those tight second intervals. But you know, they're something you can't not pay attention to. These notes, the sixes and nines, you could do this stuff all day, and not have to worry about maybe providing too much. When I go to the B chord, oops. First of all, I play the B chord and I take a little space. It's a half note. You know, so I just let it ring. I'm kind of relieving some of the rhythmic tension of doing this. And then I give you that idea where once again grace noting the second, so it's a little, you know, some relative movement from the A chord, and then I give you a four, just in a different voicing than. It's just in a different voicing this way. And it gives me a cluster, you know, between the 4 and the 3, thinking the B root. That's what's going on in Petty Cash. So we're taking two major chords, and instead of doing it more in this vibe where it's flat 7 to 1, and the second chord is the tonic, like think You Really Got Me, you know, that type of vibe, or even Jailhouse Rock. That's great. That's great. But this is totally different. It puts you into a different place, and you could do different colors. They're both great colors, but this one might be a cool new thing for you to check out. So the progression, Roman numeral wise, is 1 and 2, like capital I and capital II and stuff like that. So 2-chord progression, but a different take on something that seems like it's common, but a little twist. So good. Okay, time for the next one. We're going to take another very common progression and do some pretty cool new things with it.